Welcome back, Sebastian here. So time for my review for sprint qualifying for the Belgian Grand Prix. So it was a 35-minute delay at the start of the session because of rain. Very similar to yesterday where even though the sun's out and it's definitely the track's not dry enough for intermediate tires, they still decide to delay the session because they're concerned about visibility. So Hamilton set the first lap, comparative lap with a 2:02.297 to set the benchmark. And then shortly after there was the Hamilton Verstappen impeding incident, which there was no further action. But basically going around which corners? I think it's turns 7 or 8. Basically the very long downhill right-hander before no name. Hamilton was kind of parked on the inside near the apex, and Verstappen was forced to go around the outside. But they decided no further action for that. As we get through the laps, because the session's shorter, drivers really only have time for 1 or 2 laps. And as drivers were getting ready to go for the checkered flag for their final laps before the checkered flag fell, Hulkenberg actually missed the checkered flag again. So they showed that there was some kind of issue in the pits that held him up for like 2 to 3 seconds, and that was actually cost him. So again, for the second straight qualifying session, Hulkenberg does not get to set a competitive lap time, which is really a shame. And I'm not really sure what Haas were doing, and they did in fact admit that it was a team mistake on the radio, especially for a sprint race where Hulkenberg has shown he's a very good driver in qualifying. So there's also chaos at turn 1, as everyone was trying to get their laps in basically at the same time. That definitely probably negatively affected a couple of those drivers. But after it's all said and done, the 5 drivers who were eliminated were Hulkenberg, Zhou, Magnussen, Bottas, and Tsunoda. So into Q2 we go, and drivers were again starting on the intermediate tires, and Sargent spun in Sector 3, but luckily there was no damage, kept it out of the barriers. And then Stroll basically pits for medium tires, and there was a lot of questions. Why is Stroll pitting for medium tires? Why not softs? It turns out that for qualifying today, they were actually using the hard, medium, soft format that they used in Hungary. And the FIA had not declared it a wet session despite the fact that there was a rain delay, there was no DRS, and everyone was using intermediate tires. So that was really a big mistake on the FIA's part. So it forced Stroll to use the medium tires instead of the softs. The first sector was good, and then we get to Sector 2, and he basically crashed quite heavily at, well, not heavily, but he crashed at No Name Corner, just kind of a slight bit of understeer into the corner, and then trying to get the rotation of the car, just kind of oversteered, carrying a little bit too much speed, and he goes kind of front first into the barriers, damages front wing and damages that front suspension. So that will be required repairs. Hopefully he'll be able to get out for the sprint, but that led to a red flag, and the session was not resumed after that. And for me, it was really, what on earth were Aston Martin thinking here? Because Alonso hadn't set a lap time yet. They set Stroll out on mediums, where there's definitely a higher risk of an incident, of a crash. So I think, I don't know what they were thinking there, sending Alonso out so late, and then also having Stroll out on a very risky tire. And I think that the other teams were not expecting someone to go out on slicks either, because Albon came on the radio saying, yeah, I think the strategy was good, except for some reason there was a car on medium. So yeah, really strange there. But then anyway, the 5 cars were eliminated in Q2, which was quite anticlimactic with that crash, were Ricciardo, Albon, Sargent, Stroll, and Alonso. Into Q3 we go. Everyone was on soft, so this was at the point where the track was really dry enough for those tires. And of course there was a short delay because they had to recover Stroll's car. Leclerc sets the benchmark, followed by Norris and Hamilton, and Verstappen was only P2 after the first runs. I think the other drivers who were in the top 5 were Sainz and Piastri, who was the 5th. And then we get for the second runs, the final runs in Q3, and times were falling really, really fast. So the track was really gripping up. And in that final Q1, we had this quite long sequence of drivers who took the fastest time. So first it was Paris, set a really good benchmark, followed by Gasly, Sainz, and then very, very close to Sainz was very small gap above Sainz was Piastri and Verstappen. So there's only 0.025 covering the top 3, so very, very close between Sainz, Piastri, and Verstappen. Excellent for Piastri, who's only 11 milliseconds behind Verstappen. And of course, then afterwards, they showed the replay of Russell Hamilton, where basically Russell locked up a little bit into turn one, and that really compromised Hamilton, who was behind him. They might investigate it for impeding. I'm not really sure if they're going to investigate for impeding, but we're going to see how it plays out. So your final grade for the sprint quali, assuming there's no grid penalties, is Verstappen, Piastri, Sainz, Leclerc, Norris, Gasly, Hamilton, Perez. A bit of a rough qualifying for him, 9/10 gap to Verstappen. 9th Ocon, 10th Russell, also not great for him. Ricciardo in 11th, I think he'll be pretty happy with that. 12th Albon, 13th Sargent, 14th and 15th are the two Aston Martin, Stroll and Alonso. Interestingly, Stroll's ahead of Alonso because I'm not actually sure why he is. I think he must have gotten a lap done. I don't think either of them said a lap, but based on the timing system, Stroll's ahead. 16th Tsunoda, 17th Bottas, 18th Magnussen, 19th Show, and 20th Hulkenberg. So should be a pretty interesting sprint race. Hopefully the rain cooperates. I do think Verstappen will probably win. And generally with the sprint races, the races are too short for there really to be any kind of element of tire strategy or really an indication of the real tire wear / race pace in the cars. So I would expect the order to stay pretty similar to how it is here. I might expect Alonso to be a little bit higher. Maybe he can get up into 8th in the points. That would probably be a very big ask, especially given where the Astons have been this weekend, about 5th fastest car, which is a massive drop of where they were earlier in the season. So that's all for my review for sprint qualifying. Of course, the sprint race will be in about 4 hours time, so looking forward to that. Of course, very, very busy weekend with Formula E, Formula 2 as well. So thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.